all know and love Demon Slayer, especially the first episode, the starting point of it all, the Kamado family massacre, Tanjiro's overwhelming grief, and Nezuko being turned into a demon, are all critical elements of the story that push Tanjiro towards becoming the greatest demon hunter. However, let's imagine a world where Muzan meets Tanjiro directly in the very first episode. Would he kill him on the spot, or would he spare his life? Or something in between, something more sinister, something that would make Tanjiro despise himself. Sounds interesting, right? Let's dive into some theories that explore these horrifying scenarios. Let's explore an alternate universe where Muzan decides to weaponize the Kamado bloodline, turning Tanjiro into a demon instead. In this grim reality, Muzan injects Tanjiro with a very controlled amount of his blood, just enough to begin the transformation process, but not enough to make him lose his mind. However, Tanjiro's legendary blood resists Muzan's cells, and he can smell the corruption spreading through his body way before it starts taking effect. Meanwhile, Nezuko's role in this world switches, as she's now the one who looks after Tanjiro and acts as his emotional anchor. Essentially, both Nezuko and Tanjiro switch each other's places, proving just how strong the bond between them is. Urokodaki plays a vital role in helping Tanjiro come to terms with his demonhood. With enough training, he can suppress his demonic urges, and he ends up learning a corrupted form of the sun-breathing technique. When he encounters Tamayo, she realizes that Muzan's blood has not overwritten Tanjiro's will. She becomes incredibly interested, since this is the first time a demon has actively tried rejecting the corruption from within. In the end, Muzan's reckless experimentation ends up biting him back, as Tanjiro does eventually master the twisted version of the sun-breathing technique, using the remnants of his humanity as his weapon to defeat Muzan. Muzan tried to destroy the sun by dragging it into the darkness. Instead, he created a shadow that learned how to burn. In our second theory, Muzan kills Tanjiro in episode 1, making Nezuko the true protagonist. After a happy day at work, Tanjiro returns to his village to find a terrifying mess. Limbs, guts, and blood splattered over every inch of his peaceful home. His innocent family murdered in cold blood. The only difference is that now he finds Muzan standing proudly in the middle of the bloodshed, an evil smile plastered across his face. Tanjiro is the final piece of the puzzle for Muzan, since he has spent centuries hunting sunbreathers, the only threat to his otherwise immortal existence. Seeing the Hanafuda earring dangling from his ear reminds Muzan of Yorichi, and he's instantly filled with a blood-curdling rage. Razor-sharp tendrils sprout from his back and stab Tanjiro directly in the heart, not giving him a second to react. So, in this twisted alternate timeline, our main character dies in the very first episode. Talk about a gripping storyline. Who then will play the role of the protagonist? Our beloved Nezuko, of course. Similar to the original story, Muzan turns her into a demon, but spares her life, because he doesn't see her as anything special just yet. Demon Nezuko wakes up all alone, with Tanjiro's cold corpse rotting right next to her. She doesn't have her brother's presence to anchor her feelings and calm her emotions, so most likely she ends up killing a villager to quench her thirst and clear her mind. She doesn't become evil, but she does become quite unstable and feral. Giyu soon arrives at the scene and finds only Nezuko alive, and is well aware that she is already killed. However, he notices her instinctively protecting her brother's corpse, so instead of killing her, Giyu restrains her and sends her off to Urokodaki. This Nezuko is unable to recharge herself by simply sleeping. She's way too traumatized and filled with rage to get a good night's sleep. Instead, Urokodaki has to use some extreme measures and hardcore training to build restraint in Nezuko. Eventually, she loses the innocence and charm that the original Nezuko had and becomes cold and distant instead. During the epic battle between Tanjiro and Rui, his Hinokami Kagura is what triggers Nezuko's blood art. However, in this alternate universe, Nezuko is all alone, and she's unable to emotionally synchronize with Tanjiro to awaken her powers. Therefore, her blood art emerges more slowly, more violently, uncontrollably. Rui can easily see past Nezuko's aggressive facade. He knows what a person with broken family trauma looks like, so he tries to claim Nezuko as his sister, asking her to join him. But Nezuko rejects Rui, not out of love, but responsibility. She still feels immeasurable guilt over Tanjiro's death. Shinobu is also extremely fascinated by Nezuko, going crazy with her experiments since she's no longer Tanjiro's timid companion, just another bloodthirsty demon with some quirks. Meanwhile, Muzan is at peace, fully believing that the Kamado family line has been made extinct. However, he severely underestimates Nezuko, not paying any attention to her at all. This gives her the chance to develop her sunlight resistance earlier. When Muzan finally discovers the monster he has created, Nezuko is already too far advanced, too big a threat for him to control. In this dark alternate reality, the story becomes a tragedy, focusing on Nezuko's lonely journey through demonhood, without the emotional anchoring that Tanjiro provided that kept her human and soft. Let's move on to the third theory now, where Muzan actually flees the scene when encountering Tanjiro. So far, all the theories have assumed that Muzan will hurt and kill anyone and everyone who comes in his way. However, what if his PTSD from facing Yorichi all those centuries ago is still so fresh in his mind that seeing Tanjiro triggers it, making Muzan flee instead? It might sound a little strange, but the chances of this happening are more likely than you might believe. Yorichi discovered the sun-breathing technique naturally and perceived the transparent world instinctively. At the peak of his power, he could see Muzan's blood flow, his organs, and all of his weak points. He was on the verge of obliterating Muzan in the blink of an eye, eye. However, Muzan escapes by splitting himself into over 1,800 fragments. He didn't survive because of his power. He survived by weakening himself to such a degree that it took Muzan literal centuries to regain that strength. Therefore, it's plausible that he would have a deep-seated fear and trauma associated with Yorichi. Tanjiro's Hanafuda earrings act like a beacon of light, letting Muzan know that his mortal enemy, Yorichi, is somehow back in the form of this clueless kid. So he runs for his life when he meets Tanjiro, his PTSD kicking in, and a deep-seated panic creeping up his spine. This is because Muzan has always been afraid of the fact that the breathing techniques can be passed down. They exist in memories and are passed down as an instinct. Destroy all sun-breathing technique users, including Tanjiro's family. Next, Muzan eliminates the rest of the villagers, breathing users, and any potential bloodline traces. Anything or anyone that can aid Tanjiro in learning the breathing techniques must perish. Another method of fighting that Muzan is a master at is the art of psychological warfare. Through Yorichi, he learns that emotional instability can be a huge obstacle in learning breathing techniques. Therefore, Muzan targets the one person closest to Tanjiro, which will completely exhaust him on an emotional level. This is none other than Nezuko. In the original story, Muzan deploys the lower moon demons gradually, testing the waters and gauging Tanjiro's strength with each attack. In this hypothetical scenario, Muzan unleashes all his resources, all at once. He needs to get rid of Tanjiro before he can master the sun-breathing technique. Muzan would create a team of fierce demons, whose primary aim would be to create obstacles in Tanjiro's breathing techniques. Someone similar to Kokushibo, whose moon breathing makes it almost impossible for a hunter to focus on his breathing technique. Or maybe even the Temple Demon, which transports slayers to a swamp-like dimension. Demons that have excellent regeneration abilities like Doma or Akaza would also be great for this purpose, as they will totally drain the energy from Tanjiro, making it hard for him to perform his sun breathing, which requires a lot of stamina. Ironically though, Muzan running away like a scared little baby only favors Tanjiro in this case, since it lets him know that he's special and has the capability of defeating the great Muzan. Muzan's meeting with Tanjiro in the first episode doesn't just affect one moment, it changes the trajectory of the entire storyline. It turns the narrative darker, more grim, more tragic, and full of uncertainties. In one timeline, Muzan chooses fear over curiosity and kills Tanjiro immediately, leaving Nezuko to survive alone and slowly become the center of the story. We also saw how the story would unfold if Muzan decided to turn Tanjiro into a demon instead, turning the boy who was destined to inherit the sun into a weird hybrid. In the strangest theory yet, Muzan doesn't fight at all. Instead, he flees the scene. He chooses to operate from the shadows and destroy Tanjiro from the peripheries. Regardless of the theory, one conclusion remains the same. Muzan ends up getting his butt kicked in the end, whether it's Demon Tanjiro or Nezuko delivering the final blow. The light he tries so hard to smother always rises above Muzan's darkness. If you'd like to watch another video full of crazy theories, click here. Go ahead, click it.